Hi guys, and welcome back to Manch Talk. I'm Carla Garrick. I just got back from a closing, so that's always good news. So I thought today we could talk about various things. Of course, this USAID scandal that is emerging, the hits just keep coming. It looks like taxpayers of America have been pretty much funding all the propaganda all over the world. So we'll get into that a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the New Hampshire real estate market, and then talk about the gold standards from the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. So that'll give you an idea of bills that are coming up this week or next. And then if we have a little bit of time at the end, maybe start to delve into some of the propaganda techniques I think that you should know about so that people will stop spreading propaganda, and so that we can catch them out so that they have to find some new way of doing the things they do. So regarding the New Hampshire real estate market, as I mentioned, I just came back from a closing. It was my first original listing, so I learned a lot from that experience, including great house, huge, like 3,300 square feet. But it did take a little time for it to sell. That could have been the location. Wasn't even really a fixer-upper. I just think genuinely too much house for most people. But the good news is it got sold, I got paid, everyone seems happy, so that's great. But what is going on in the New Hampshire real estate market? Because people have asked me, hey, Carla, should I buy now? Should I wait? What's going to happen? What does your crystal ball tell you about the future of interest rates and all of that stuff? Now, of course, none of us actually know the future, so it is kind of hard to predict. But here is one thing that I do believe is true about the New Hampshire real estate market, and it's the following. Scarcity means that things are more expensive. And we do have an inventory shortage here in New Hampshire. So to me, it seems unlikely that even if prices drop in other parts of the nation, that they are actually going to go down here. Now, I've been wrong before. It's possibly I'm wrong. In many ways, I believe that there's never a bad time to buy, because over a long term, which is usually what a home investment is, you are going to get your money back, right? So a lot of the people who feel frothy about the real estate market are really in it more for investing than, say, as your primary home. So, as of early 2025, so this time of year, our housing market here in New Hampshire is robust, right? The average home price is now $474,000. So let's just round it up to $480,000, which is an over 6% increase just on what the average price was last year. Now, when I moved to New Hampshire 15, 16, 17 years ago, I think the average home price was $180,000. So you might be wondering what's going on, right? Like, why are home prices going up so quickly? Now, partly it is because there is a housing shortage, and one might argue perhaps the mass amounts of people who've been sort of coming into the country may be impacting that. And sort of as a side note, I read somewhere that New Hampshire has taken in up to 20,000 immigrants into our state, which is a pretty significant number. I mean, I know there are 20,000 free staters, and no one seems to like that number. So maybe depending on, if you're a Democrat or a Republican or a small L, big L libertarian, you have a different perspective about these things. But if there are sort of, if those numbers come down, right, if the immigration numbers or illegal immigrant number comes down, then maybe the housing market will become a little more accessible, right? So, even if you're a first-time or a first-time home buyer, again, don't wait, right? So we're seeing, I was talking to one of my colleagues and he said, they're still seeing, he had an open house and he had more than 60 couples come through for a property. Some of that depends on what price point you're at. If you're at this 480-ish, which is now the median house price, you're going to see a lot of competition and a lot of people being like, we want to get in here. Obviously, the higher up you go, the more expensive it is, the less people are actually shopping in that area, that price point. So homes are still moving quickly. My glasses are really dirty. Just hold on, guys. So homes are moving very quickly, and often they're going on under contract in like 2 to 3 weeks. So even that is still robust and fast, especially for the winter. For anyone who's watching, today is Wednesday, February 12th, and there is a storm coming in tonight. There is a weather warning, I believe, from midnight tonight until noon tomorrow. So just, if you need to storm to get your bread and milk, now's the time. So on the inventory levels, significant challenges actually do still exist. Someone had said, and this also sounds a bit alarmist, but there was Manchester actually built a fair amount of new units. I want to say there were more than 3,000 units that were supposed to come online in the past year. So the housing inventory should be shifting. So again, some people are like, well, if we get, if the human market normalizes, right, because not everything is quite normal right now, we should see this imbalance correct itself. The trend on pricing is inventory, even if it does go up, prices are probably still going to go up. Now, a factor to that is not just, oh, my home became more valuable. I mean, we love that, and that's great, and it, you build wealth by buying real estate. But some of those numbers are inflationary. What do I mean by that? So if you've been watching this show for a long time, you probably know that the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation that has nothing to do with the government, sets interest rates, but they also print the money. And when they print too much money, they dilute the value of the dollar, and everyone's money becomes worth less. So everything becomes more expensive, but you haven't really gotten more, right? So I saw an article yesterday that said the average price of eggs has gone from $1.70 for a dozen up to $8.13. I'm not sure if those numbers were New Hampshire specific or nationwide, but even in that, I mean, there are two things factored into that, of course, is the inflation, but then also the crazy people who are now killing all the birds again because, we're scared of some bug in the air. All right, so what else can I tell you about the housing market? Mortgage rates, the rate has kind of stabilized around 6, or we're hoping that's where it's going to stay, but who knows? Again, don't wait. I believe for real estate investors, New Hampshire is primo. Why? First of all, every libertarian in the world should own a piece of New Hampshire. We're going to make that happen by using distributed autonomous organizations, which are legal in New Hampshire thanks to the work of Free Staters. What is that? It is basically a blockchain LLC, short version. So think of it as an LLC where people own shares in something, but this is a contract that runs on the blockchain, which means it is a ledger that anyone can go look at, and you can tokenize real estate. So instead of being like a shareholder, maybe in a 10-person partnership where you buy property, we're now going to try and do some of this on the digital platforms through the blockchain so that we can digitize it, and maybe over time you would actually start to create your titles for your homes and your deeds through NFTs and all of that. So if all of that sounds like Greek to you, you should be following me so that I can teach you more about these things. And you can always find me on social media under my name, Carla Garrick. And please do join in for these crazy little shows I'm doing on X. I'm doing a daily My Living experiment on the platform X, and sometimes they're pretty good. I did a great one yesterday. It was an hour long, but I talked a lot about sort of ego, what the role of ego is in our lives, and how maybe we could do better and not live in these sort of fear-based paradigms that they're creating for us. All right, so that's the New Hampshire real estate market. What do we have going on in terms of bills coming up? So these are the gold standard. If you're not familiar, these are the documents generated by the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. This is a nonpartisan, pro-liberty nonprofit organization. They might have a political action arm as well. But basically what they do is it is a bunch of volunteers who volunteer their time to go through the 1,000+, I know, bills that are introduced every year at the State House. And because there are so many bills, and because New Hampshire uniquely allows every bill to have a committee hearing, the NHLA basically provides a tool or a cheat sheet for legislators to understand which of the bills actually expand liberty for all Granite Staters, instead of being some piece of paper that someone's like, hey, I want some special treatment, help my special interest. So the ones that are coming up are, well, the one that I thought was interesting, which isn't actually on here, maybe it's in the Senate one, was the inspection bill. So here in New Hampshire, of course, we all have to get our cars inspected. It costs us money. It's kind of a trap, a honey trap maybe, for people when they have their cars inspected. You kind of get stuck in this loop where they're like, we think you need to have this done and this done and this done, and then the next thing you know, you're thousands of dollars in the hole. So they have, over the years, many years, been trying to get the inspection stickers, just get rid of it, right? And I'm not sure what's going to happen with it, but apparently it had done as well as it could do. So here on the gold standard, we have HB 238, which says prohibiting collective bargaining agreements from requiring employees to join or contribute to a labor union. This is basically right-to-know legislation. So what is that? That is basically legislation that says you can't force someone to join a union. Seems reasonable, right? We believe in choice, if you believe in freedom. And so this one is recommended yay, ought to pass. So we will see what comes of that. There's also HB 203, relative to Coast Guard approved personal flotation devices while in New Hampshire state water. So this is anti-liberty, so it's basically a bill that says you must wear a life vest. Now, you probably should, but the big thing in life is, what is this distinction between what you must do, meaning there's a law, and if you don't do it, we are going to come, and if you're lucky, we're going to ticket you, but if you're unlucky, we're going to drag you away and put you in a cage, right? And that is the reality of laws. So that is why smart people are like, we should really have a limited amount of laws, because we're not really trying to create a world where everyone's like, oh my God, I'm going to get locked up, right? So these are the things you must do, laws. Then there are a lot of things you should do. You should brush your teeth. You should make your bed in the morning. You should wear a life vest. You should wear a safety belt. But must you? And I would argue, no, you must not. There should not be a law per se. So this one, HB 203 with the life vests in state waters, adults should make their own decisions, whether it's needed. Parents can make their decision for their children without mandating it. If you're a good parent, you're probably going to put some floaties on their arms or teach them how to swim, maybe even just throw them in the deep end, see what happens in a pool, not the ocean. And so this one is recommended ITL. So there's some surface water stuff, and then let's see, what else looks interesting? Shoreland and water protection. Here's a state-federal relations and veterans affair one. This would be repealing the Selective Service Compliance Act. This is HB 55. This bill is pro-liberty. It removes the state university's requirement to enforce selective service registration. Because state universities are state agencies, it should not be they're state agencies. They're not part of the federal setup, and selective service is federal. And so this bill is just saying, hey, actually here in New Hampshire, if it's a state university, we do what the state wants, not what the federalists tell us to do. So that's HB 55 is yay or to pass. All right, I'm going to say that's it for the bills coming up in the House. Now, looking at what's happening in the Senate, this is for tomorrow, Thursday, February 13th. So for tomorrow, there is a SB 76 relative to the Office of the Child Advocate. So this one sounds like it's really bad, kind of anti-liberty. It redefines the age of a child to 21. So people who've watched the show for a while know this is one of my pet peeves. Can we just pick numbers and stick to them? Because what we have managed to do is, one, we have infantilized an entire generation, or two actually at this stage, of humans, right, who are not functioning at the level they should be functioning because we have decided we're just perpetually going to indulge people's extended childhoods, right? And when you're 18, you should be treated like an adult for all your life decisions. So if you're 18 and you can go to war, then you should be able to buy a beer. So this bill, I guess, is redefining the age to 21, and they should no longer be getting benefits. So this has to do with benefits of some sort. Let's see, ways and means. Again, establishing a marine habitat fee. So basically, see, now this is a great example. So this one is SB, so Senate Bill 159 is proposed legislation to introduce a new marine habitat fee for individuals 16 and older. So when they want to take your money, suddenly you're younger, but then when they want to do something else where you should have the freedom to do something, then you're older. Do you guys see that this doesn't generally make sense? And for people who like things to make sense, which is most libertarians, because we're pretty logical, rational people, we have created a world that is going to drive us bananas. All right, so let's delve into, in the last 10 minutes, I want to delve into this USAID story a little bit. So I did laugh. I was doing a radio interview yesterday, and I had just seen a tweet go by from Steven Pinker, who is a brilliant philosopher, a thought leader. And it amused me because he used the term Trusk, which I had not seen before, which is, of course, a mashup of Trump and Musk. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's probably going to stick, mostly because I'm going to use it. So, so what's up with this Trusk and USAID? So, people are, so it's a tell by who are freaking out about this, right? So basically, if you were if you were benefiting from a slush fund and your slush fund has now been switched off, and you're protesting, maybe you want to do a little bit of self-reflection. But basically, what's come out of all of this is the part that I'm most interested in is sort of this thread of propaganda. There's a really good account called Data Republican. Small r is the way it is on X. It is a woman who is putting together, or at least claims to be a woman, putting together a lot of interesting data. So she's sort of building models that people can go and then deep dive into, follow the money, right? So she has discovered, I guess, that Politico received at least $34.3 million. The New York Times has received about $50 million. The AP, the Associated Press, received $19.5 million. Reuters got $9 million, and the BBC got $3.3 million. Now, I don't know about you, but I would like my news to actually be objective and just kind of the facts, right? I don't think a news organization can claim to be a news organization if you're taking propaganda money that has been slushed through the slush fund, and if you are not disclosing to your readers or your viewers or listeners that you are actually a puppet, right? And I was thinking about it, USAID, if I have my story straight, I think was started, years and years ago, 30, 40, 50, maybe even years ago to fight the commies. And now, as far as I can tell, it's actually promoting communism, which, as you guys will recall last week, we were talking about how language sort of evolves. And I think a good example is within the consciousness scope, right? The self-help world, that kind of stuff, where we literally went from people are waking up and they've become awakened, and these were good things, right? Like our collective consciousness, our sort of understanding of the universe was growing, right? Like we're becoming more present and all of that. And now we've gone like full circle to like woke, right? And it's a swear word at this stage. And so that kind of language perversion over time, I think is the same thing that happens within bureaucracies and with things like the deep state. They start out maybe even with a good mission, although I believe everything could be done privately, better, cheaper, more efficient. That's what the markets are there for, and that the government should be very limited in what it's doing, but it really should not be paying to propagandize. Because the other thing is, we spent, all of COVID mania being told that these experts know what's good for us. But if you start to find out your experts are actually paid puppets of the government, then perhaps you would be more skeptical about the information that they are giving to you. All right, so there's also this intra-news. So these guys have gotten $500 million with a B dollars. So this is some kind of big organization. It's an NGO, non-government organization that has basically been a funnel that has kind of taken in a lot of this money and then dispersing it to all these other nonprofits to do certain agendas, right? And this intra-news, here's an interesting little factoid. One of its board members is also a board member on Reddit. And Reddit has, of course, anyone who's been using it for a long time knows they'd been fully co-opted, right? It kind of went from the wild internet to this very like comrade forward place, right? Where you can't criticize anything, you get taken down, they don't have a sense of humor anymore, everything has just become commie red, for lack of a better term. So this $500 million has been used to affect social and political transformation. So it's not about the news, it's about something different. And the way to think about it is, remember all the color revolutions we saw? I don't know if there was a lilac one, I do think there was, right? But we had the Ukraine, was that one orange? There were all these color revolutions. Turns out, all kind of funded by the CIA, which we knew because some of us have been saying that for years, but now finally we can follow the money. So I will be keeping an eye on this story for us, but you know, we're still, the story is still, for lack of a better term, developing. All right, what else do I want to tell you? There is a New Hampshire connection to all of this too, because there was a judge. So part of what's happening, right? So DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which, side quest for 2 secs. So I almost feel like no one's going to believe me, but apparently this is how they treat federal employees when they retire. Their personnel files go to a mine in, I believe it was Pennsylvania, but don't quote me on that. And then they get put in like an elevator, and then they get taken down to the mine, and like literally putting a federal file of a retired personnel, like to process it out takes like weeks. And so for people who understand technology, we're like, that is really just not good enough. Can we do a better way? And so there's the big tech kind of crew who are like, we can do better, we know we can, and we can make it cheaper, faster, and all of those things. Just, you know, let us actually figure out what's wrong, right? And we are seeing all of that rot. I mean, USAID is just really one component of that. But now what's happening with the lawfare side of things is all these judges who are activist judges are just issuing ex parte. What does that mean? That means like you literally didn't let the other side even show up to the motion. You just didn't even tell them. So that doesn't seem fair, even if you're just being like, okay, let's look what seems to make sense. So these activist judges are making these ex parte orders and trying to stop DOGE from getting the data so that we can actually discern what is happening. So one of those was a judge from New Hampshire. And what he did is he stopped Trump's executive order about the birthright citizenship. And this judge is Judge LaPlante. So he's from New Hampshire. He doesn't look too shady just based on my own research. But I think that'll be an interesting development for us to follow as well as that story develops. So that's pretty much what I got for this week. So we talked about New Hampshire real estate. We talked a little bit about the USAID scandal that is developing, DOGE, what's going to happen with Trusk, with Trump and Musk. And I will leave you guys with the following thoughts. Check out this book, Texit, by Daniel Miller. He is a secessionist in Texas, really interesting read. Follow me on social media, like our page, Manch Talk, although I think I'm going to change the name. I swear I will get to that at some stage. So until next week, thank you for joining me. If you're watching this on YouTube, throw me a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks, guys. Peace out.